So recently I saw Dr. Bob do a collaboration with another animator called The Oddity, and he has some really cool looking animations. Today we're going to do Scary Monsters from Abandoned House, SCP-1983, Doorway to Nowhere. This ought to be interesting. Make sure to show some love to Oddity. His link is going to be down there in the description, and let's get into this animation, guys.
SCP-1983-1, also known as the Doorway to Nowhere, is a modest, one-story farmhouse in a rural community in the state of Wyoming.
Alright.
According to local records, the building was abandoned in 1968 following a spree of ritualistic murders committed on the grounds.
Right.
Those believed to be responsible were allegedly a Satanic cult.
Wow.
But further details on the particulars of this cult are classified in SCP-1983's capture records.
Very scary.
Despite the cult being long gone, SCP-1983's legacy of anomalous activity lives on. When opened, the front door of the abandoned farmhouse appears to contain a spatial anomaly. No light or matter appear to exit this anomaly,
that would make
like a tall black rectangle with nothing inside. But it is exothermic, meaning it gives off heat. The entire building has spatially anomalous qualities.
They thought it
can be entered as normal through any other passageway in the home, other than the front door. This includes windows, the back door, and entrances cut into the back of SCP-1983-1 by the Foundation.
Interesting.
However, the building's front room, which is the room the front doorway should logically connect to, doesn't appear to exist within the building. The building's geometry does not follow the same spatial laws as the rest of the world, and doorways into what should be the front room instead lead to other impossible locations in the farmhouse.
Nice.
The Foundation has done extensive testing on the geography and dimensions of SCP-1983, and they have found that the measurements of the inside and outside of the building are physically impossible, with the building seeming to be much larger on the inside. While the Foundation has successfully made holes in the exterior walls to enter the building, this tactic did not work for the front room. It only resulted in them entering through a different area of the farmhouse. The same was true for attempts to enter the room via holes made in the interior walls. This has only resulted in Foundation personnel emerging through the front wall of the farmhouse. It's important to note that the resulting holes never fall within a 3-meter radius of the front door. This entire area appears to resist almost all interference. Some attempts to breach the front wall have led to small holes and cracks that expose the anomaly within. But the O5 Council has forbidden further attempts to breach the anomaly this way. O5-3 has gone on the record with their concern that these kinds of tests risk releasing more dangerous SCP-1983-2 entities. Which brings us to the entities themselves. SCP-1983-2 is the collective designation for the entities that emerge from SCP-1983-1. They are hostile, bipedal anomalies that stand approximately 1.8 meters or 5.9 feet tall. The creatures appear to be vaguely humanoid, but it's difficult to make determinations on their physiology because of 2 factors. The first is that their entire body is a deep, uniform black color. The second is that upon expiring, the SCP-1983-2 creatures seem to dissolve into a sulfur-like substance, making proper dissection impossible. The Foundation considers these entities to be extremely aggressive, and they have been known to engage human targets on sight. Foundation personnel are advised to avoid any kind of close contact with SCP-1983-2. They have displayed the frightening ability to reach into the chests of their prey without causing any kind of physiological damage, like a ghost passing through a wall, at which point the creatures pull out the hearts of their victims, causing them to expire immediately. After taking the heart from the nearest unlucky human, SCP-1983-2 will retreat back into SCP-1983-1 with its prize. Because the Foundation has faced somewhat similar beings in the past, the method of fighting the SCP-1983-2 entities wasn't too hard to figure out. They must be shot with silver-tipped munitions, like a vampire or werewolf, while the shooter says a sincere prayer. It does not matter what religion the member of personnel is praying for or to, as long as they 100% believe in the prayer. If they aren't entirely sincere, then no amount of silver bullets will make a difference. SCP-1983 was first discovered after a series of people were found dead in the area, missing their hearts without any visible wounds. The Foundation descended on the area soon after to investigate, and after locating an instance of SCP-1983-2, they followed it back to its base. The farmhouse has been under containment by the Foundation ever since. The file for SCP-1983 contains a number of critical addendums about the shifting SCP-1983 situation, caused mainly by a series of excursions mounted by armed Foundation personnel into SCP-1983-1's anomalous zone. First, an assault team from MTF Chi-13, a Diwali religious task force nicknamed the Choir Boys, was sent into SCP-1983-1 to further investigate whatever is going on behind the anomalous doorway to nowhere. This team never returned, but on the upside, this expedition into SCP-1983 led to a drop in SCP-1983-2 instances after the fact. Shortly after the disappearance of this team, a door appeared in the doorway for the first time, and it closed. A second assault team from MTF Chi-13 was then sent in to discover what happened to the first.
Wow.
This team also disappeared. However, the door didn't close behind them this time. New instances of SCP-1983-2 emerged and needed to be repelled.
Okay.
Soon after, Foundation Agent Morris entered the doorway and closed the door behind him. He was never seen again. The third and final excursion occurred on May 23rd, 1989. A D-class named Jackson Parker, whose file was notable for describing the fact he had an unshakable faith in the belief that everything happened for a reason, prepared to enter the anomaly. He was given a closed-circuit television camera tethered to a monitor by a 25-foot cord and sent into the doorway to gather as much information as he could. However, the feed soon cut, and the cord was rapidly pulled taut before snapping in the doorway. Several hours later, the anomaly within the doorway seemed to disappear entirely, leading to a normal passageway into the elusive front room of the farmhouse. Agents found that the front room was filled with the desiccated bodies of several Foundation agents, as well as document 1983-15, a report written by Agent Barclay, a member of MTF Chi-13, sent into the belly of the beast to conduct research. Presumed dead, it is from Agent Barclay's last writings that we know the true extent of this SCP, and how it may have been thwarted by the actions of D-Class Jackson Parker. Agent Barclay wrote that while the Foundation believed SCP-1983 to be a localized anomaly, this wasn't actually the case. The doorway was a portal to a strange dimension that appeared to be made from a patchwork of various buildings, suggesting that there are multiple entry points to this location from a number of doorways over a much wider location than initially believed. The SCP-1983-2 entities were both different and stronger within this dimension. They were less substantial, almost like living shadows, making them impossible to kill, but just as proficient in the act of killing. People who survived for the longest, Agent Barclay wrote, remained out of the light, where the shadows are most defined. Barclay also found that, for humans, the passages into this dimension were one way. Anyone who attempts to exit will enter a hostile zone that causes human beings to melt if exposed for long enough.
Oh my God.
Since those trapped inside were already virtually dead, the kindest thing they could do was close the doors from the inside. This seemed to impede the ability of the SCP-1983-2 entities to escape into our reality. Agent Barclay wrote that the heart of the dimension was a place he called the Nest. This place was filled with sources of light, allowing the shadows to become more defined, and therefore more powerful. These entities use the collected hearts as a kind of rudimentary egg sac. The hearts, which are gathered in a huge pile, hatch to release more SCP-1983-2 instances. While he mused that he himself was now too lacking in belief to do it, Agent Barclay implied that destroying the nest may be the only way to end this horror. All evidence points to D-Class Jackson Parker taking Barclay's advice and destroying the nest, potentially neutralizing the anomaly in the process. SCP-1983 seems to be extremely sensitive to human belief, and Mr. Parker's true belief in a sense of cosmic justice allowed him to win the day. For his courage, Mr. Parker was posthumously awarded the Foundation Star, their highest honor. However, in an even happier twist, it seems that Mr. Parker may have survived and escaped after the destruction of SCP-1983. He now works as a waiter at a high-end New York bistro. The discoveries that came to light after the expeditions into SCP-1983 have caused its containment classification to fluctuate. It was first designated Keter due to the fact that it may be connected to a huge number of doorways across the globe, making it a containment nightmare. However, the actions of Jackson Parker in the dissolution of the Wyoming anomaly has led to the Foundation adding presumed neutralized to this classification.
I see.
A facility known as Outpost 54 has been built around the farmhouse and disguised as a chemical plant.
Just in case.
This plant acts as a barracks for the detachments of the Choir Boys tasked with guarding SCP-1983, as well as an armory for their various weapons and silver-tipped munitions should more 1983-2 entities emerge. Since the potential dissolution of the anomaly, though, security has been considerably relaxed around SCP-1983, but the detachments and their weaponry remain on site in case anomalous activity ever resumes.
Heck yeah, man.
This is one of the few anomalies we can likely close the book on. Jackson Parker presumably destroyed the shadow dimension at its heart, and there hasn't been any anomalous activity since. But It won't make you any less nervous next time you see an old farmhouse on the side of the road.
It's true.
And peer into the darkness of its doorway. After all, who knows where it could lead?
What? Hey, yo, I gotta say, first impressions of the Oddity, freaking awesome. This was like, most of the time I watch these animations just because they're very easily consumed, right? I enjoy them. It doesn't take me long to record them. It doesn't take you long for them to watch them and all of that stuff. I love the long form stuff, but these animations, some of them are really, really good. This is a great example of that. Wouldn't you agree? It's just very watchable, and it themed to adults, you know? I mean, a child could enjoy it, so to speak, but it was definitely not geared. This subject matter, this specific SCP, definitely not something, you know, super kid friendly because it's dealing with satanic cults and stuff like that. I don't know. I liked it a lot. I hope y'all did too. Guys, make sure to subscribe to Oddity. His link's going to be in the description as well as right there, and a couple other videos that I reacted to that I think you'll love. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time. Break it down.